Guess who wasn't expecting to make a video today? Okay, so this is going to be one of those off-the-cuff Mark Ellis reviews videos that I make occasionally, and which hopefully are interesting because, well, Apple has surprised quite a lot of people with an event invite yesterday, which is called, well, it's called Scary Fast. It is next Monday, or technically it's next Tuesday, because if you live in the UK, it's midnight. And this is strange for a couple of reasons, because firstly, they've quoted it in Pacific time, which is odd, and normally it's much earlier in the day. But also, for the first time in a long time, I think they've revealed, well, they have definitely revealed what this event is about. Because if you look at the event invite on apple.com, it goes from being this kind of spooky backlit Apple logo to a retro Mac logo. So clearly this is a Mac event. And that begs the question, what on earth are we going to see? I've got some thoughts. My first thought revolves around the iMac, and to illustrate this, I need to take you off this tripod and bring you down here, because for the last 6 months, if not longer, I've been hiding something from you, literally. And it is this, the 24-inch M1 iMac. It's been sitting here unloved, unused for that period, and it's a crying shame. The problem we have with this iMac is that it hasn't been updated by Apple for over 900 days. So the obvious thing for next week, and the thing that all of the rumours are pointing towards, is that we're going to see an update finally to the 24-inch iMac. Now the thing that I'm struggling with is I can't quite work out which chip Apple is going to put into it, because the M2, which is the obvious candidate, I suppose, it's just a bit boring. Does that really warrant a complete event thing around it? I don't think it does. And equally, there are issues with the base level M2 chip. If you buy that one, it's a bit slower in certain scenarios than the M1 version that it replaces. So again, that doesn't feel like it warrants an event. However, what if Apple keeps the M1 version on the stock list and reduces the price of it to make it very tempting for people who don't care about the latest spec, and in its place put the M2 Pro version? So they skip the M2 completely and create a slightly more pro-focused M2 Pro edition. So that's one possibility, but there is one other possibility with the iMac. That's the Apple event invite for next week, and the words scary fast, I don't know, are they enough for the M2 Pro? Again, would they create a complete event around that existing chip, even if it's going into the iMac? Scary fast, as lots of people are pointing out, seems to point to something much bigger, and that much bigger thing is possibly the M3 chip. Now the M3 is Apple's long-awaited 3nm chip, and they're a bit behind the pack with this because other chip manufacturers have stole a march. They've got their 3nm chips and sailed off into the sunset. That whole scary fast thing and the fact we're getting an event next week at all does suggest that the M3 could finally make an appearance. And if they put that M3 chip into the iMac, that does two things. The first thing is that it reaffirms that the iMac is a thing. They care about it. It will stop people like me saying, why haven't you updated the iMac? Because they've put the latest chip into it, and no other Mac has that at that stage. The second thing it does is it allows Apple to finish the year on a big high, a massive high, and hopefully boost their sales. However, we have been told on multiple occasions that the M3 chip isn't ready yet, and it wasn't that long ago we had the M2 Pro and M2 Max and M2 Ultra launched for other Macs. So although the M3 would be the base level M3, it wouldn't be the Pro focused version. Does Apple, I don't know, does Apple really want to cast a shadow over those M2 releases? And again, if it's just the M3 chip and there's no M3 Pro and M3 Max being announced next week, is that really enough to warrant an event? There must be something else. There has to be something else. Time for some outside bets about what we might see at next week's event. So this is my 16-inch MacBook Pro, and if you've been watching this channel for a little while, you'll know that I'm getting a bit fed up of the size of this thing. And it's the M1 Max version. It's a very fast laptop, don't get me wrong, but as a content creator and someone who covers Apple for a living, I should be upgrading this fairly soon. So what if we see an M3 Pro and M3 Max MacBook Pro next week. Selfishly, for me, that would be incredibly exciting. However, we only had new MacBook Pros back in January, which isn't that long ago in terms of MacBook Pro release dates. And, well, if you bought one of those machines back in January, particularly if you spec'd it up and spent a fortune on it, how annoyed are you going to be if Tim drops an M3 version next week? That said, there are some rumours swirling around about this, and going back to the scary fast thing and the fact they're holding this event, I wouldn't be surprised if we see MacBook Pros next week. This is the studio display, and earlier this year some people were suggesting that the combination of the studio display and something like the M2 Pro Mac Mini or the M2 Mac Studio was a replacement for the now dead iMac Pro. But rumours have persisted about a new iMac Pro arriving at some stage, and potentially it being a 32-inch version of that new iMac design, which sounds amazing. Now again, going back to the Apple event next week and the scary fast theme, there's an outside chance that we might see that big iMac on Monday/Tuesday. I'd love to see that, and I know loads of you would as well, but I'm sorry guys, I'm not convinced we're going to see that next week. Again, if you look at the rumours and the analysts, they're all saying the same thing, which is the big iMac is coming, it's 100% coming, they think, but not until late next year or potentially 2025. But that does leave one more possibility for next week. Yesterday I published a video on the iPad where I said it's very unlikely that Apple is going to launch any more iPads in 2023, particularly when it comes to the iPad mini. And then within seconds of me hitting publish, Apple announced this event, obviously. And then loads of people came to the comments and said, well, this video aged well, didn't it? Now, I'm going to stick with my guns on this one. There's an outside chance that we might see iPads next week, but I think it is the most outside bet of all the things that I've just mentioned, because this is a Mac event, guys, and I just can't see Apple doing a kind of one more thing and announcing a slightly updated iPad mini with a new chip and an iPad 11th generation. It just wouldn't make any sense. So I will stick with my prediction on this one. I don't think we're going to see new iPads until next year, probably spring. But regardless of any of my thoughts, I want to know what you think about next week's event. Which Macs do you think we're going to see? Do you think we're going to see anything else apart from Macs? And what are you looking forward to buying, hopefully, after the event? Let me know in the comments. And if you missed that iPad video yesterday, keep watching for a link.